I'm Janey Gioiosa. I am a wood-fired baker here in Louisa County, and I sell at 2 farmers markets, one in Charlottesville and one in Richmond, and just currently got out of the restaurant industry and now doing this full-time. So I went to culinary school right here in Charlottesville at PVCC, which is a great program, when I was in my early 20s, and from there just my first job was Brazos Tacos, working on the line, and I just bounced around from restaurant job to restaurant job, got out of the restaurant world, got pulled back into the restaurant world, as one does, as it usually does. And I loved it. I love the fast pace of working on the line. I love the camaraderie. And my first baking job was at Marie Bet, which was, I think, in 2017. And from there, it just my brain exploded in terms of waking up at 4 a.m. and feeling good about going to work and not miserable. And what they were doing, and it was still pretty small establishment then. Now it's, tripled in size. So just from there, I loved to cook, but I really wanted to bake, but I wasn't. And I had no idea that this was even something that could even happen, running my own business. And social media was a thing, but not as it was now, or as it is now. And there's this woman named Tara Jensen, and she was living in Marshall, North Carolina, about 30 minutes north of Asheville, I believe, and running a wood-fired bakery and doing pie workshops and wood-fired pies. And I found her somehow. I'm like, I have to go down and see what she's doing. I don't know anything about this wood-fired business. She's this woman living on her own in the middle of North Carolina. And so one day after work, I drove down, I took this wood-fired baking pie shop, and it just changed my life. Completely altered everything that I thought I wanted to do. And it just solidified that I want to do this one day in my life. I want to do wood-fired baking one day in my life. Unfortunately, I relapsed. I have had cancer twice, and that's when I relapsed. So things really got put on pause. And after going through that again, it just trims the fat, and it just makes you focus on what you want and what you want to do. And that was food. And I started I was living in Crozet at the time, and I started a little bread club, Janey's Bread Club, just in my home kitchen. I wasn't using local flour then. I was just using King Arthur, and slowly Wade's Mill was my first, flour that I started to put into my stuff. And I was selling focaccias, and people would just come to my house and just pick up bread. I probably had 5 people doing that, and that was a huge deal to me. And COVID happened, and the restaurant world changed forever, and I stepped away from Petite Marie Bet, went back to Petite Marie Bet, stepped away from Petite Marie Bet, and I found Little Hat Creek Farm out in Nelson County. And talk about just like my brain double exploded. I found a woman who started the Common Grain Alliance here in Virginia, and she is a wood-fired baker. She's self-taught, and just completely shifted how I thought about bread. It wasn't just using bread flour and that's it. It was, you have your country loaf, and there's 10 different flours in it, and it's everything I didn't even know I wanted to do. And so that really made me, and I could see that I could do it. Like, oh, I'm okay at this. I can handle this. We were all hand mixing everything. I got this. And then so I kept doing my little bread club on the side. I moved to Nashville. I started Janey's Bread in Nashville.
Oh, okay.
So I started my LLC there. I started my first farmer's market there. I was just baking in my little oven. I could do 2 loaves at a time. So it took forever. I would start at 7 a.m. and be done baking at 11 o'clock, just because I could only do so much production. Currently getting my wood oven built at the time. It took forever. Left Nashville, came here, and just went for it. taught myself how to use these ovens, and did that and the restaurant job, and now here we are doing it full time. The baking community in Charlottesville is insane, first of all, in terms of there's so many bakeries, there's so much different bakeries. I mean, it's pretty incredible that we have not the biggest town in the world, but we can support a lot of bread. And so back when I was first getting into it, it was Albemarle Baking Company. I mean, Jerry Newman, he paved the way for all of us. And that's what my old boss, Patrick at Marie Bette, said. And I remember that to this day. It's so true that without all of us, there can't be any of us. And I mean, I wasn't aware of local grain. I worked the counter at Albemarle Baking Company when I was 19 years old. And I just I never thought about flour. I just thought about, oh, there's bread now. That's cool. And so now, because the Common Grain Alliance and what that's done, and being in it full on, and it's incredible. I think it's amazing. I think what's mostly incredible is the kindness that I felt from other bakers. I mean, it is competition at the end of the day, but you don't feel that at all within the bread community. At least I don't, and I try not to. It's bread. Like, it's about community and sharing, and the fact that I'm able to, the money that I get from making bread, that I'm able to give that back to my community by buying local grain is fucking awesome. I mean, that's like Fred at Grapewood Farms, he delivers my flour, and I get to talk to my miller and my farmer as he's handing me, and I'm emailing him talking about the whole spelt flour because he wants to know how it performed. Baking is pretty isolating. I'm the only one here Wednesday through Friday until I go to the market on Saturdays and then Thursday evenings. I'm alone. I'm doing this all myself by choice. I also just not ready to hire anyone, but I think that isolation and that how hard it is, and you're choosing to do it alone, you have to love it. And then to find other people that are doing that too, it's like an instant connection. Like, oh, you get it. You understand that, yeah, you can make a beautiful, pasta dish, but it takes 5 minutes. But you can make one loaf of bread, it takes 16 hours, So there's just a different level of, oh, you're choosing to do this because you love it, not because, like, it's an easy choice.
It's like farming. It's a special kind of stupid.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I only know my normal.
Yeah.
And so mine, flour-wise, was Pillsbury flour and then King Arthur later on. That wasn't really a thing when I was learning how to bake as a kid. I mean, my mom has just bins that say flour on it, and she'd dump it in. I don't even know what flour I was using, to be perfectly honest. And whole wheat then eventually came around, and so I didn't. And then you don't really need to know flour because you can just buy bread. It's just so, why do that when you can just buy Dave's Killer Bread on the freaking shelves or whatever? That's our competition. Or anyways, and then now, I mean, if you go in my bakery, when we do, it is 50 different flours that are all open. There's no, like, when people ask me at the market, is this whole wheat? I'm like, I can't. It's whole grain. I can sit here and tell you that there's spelt and buckwheat and, hard red, and there's turkey red. I could do that, but I lose them. To me, that's the normal now and it's a privilege that I have a community that can afford it because it's not cheap. And I get why people don't do it too. It's easy to just buy good quality King Arthur, which is great, and they're doing amazing things. But it's a luxury that I'm able to have a community that does care and that will pay for the product because of what I'm putting into the bread. So there is, like, you have to acknowledge too that it's a privilege that I'm able to do this. It's beautiful and so frustrating at the same time. No day is the same in this bakery. The bread is always different because I call myself the most consistent baker. Like, I try to use less and less tools. I don't like the pH scale, all of that. Like, I like to go what it looks like and how it feels. and I'll adjust next time. I take notes. I have notes and papers everywhere. And that's just how it works for me. That's just who I am to my core in general. And which means that it's just going to be different. But my flower is different every time. You know, the ash level number is different. The falling number level is different. It's just, you just work what you have because you want to support your community. And so if the grain didn't perform that well, suck it up and find a way to use it so you can keep supporting these hard working farmers and millers. I do like the inconsistencies. I do like, I'm not just doing the same thing every day. I mean, that's why I've had a million jobs in my life, because I was doing the same thing every day. And I do like there's an honesty that comes with this business, where last week I fired my oven too hot and some of my bread was a little burnt on the bottom. And I was honest, I discounted it, and people were so understanding. You know, it's a beautiful thing when, I mean, it's my heart and soul on that table when people come up. It's not just bread. That is, you are seeing me at my most vulnerable state when literally my soul is just right there. And so I think that's the romantic side of how much I care and how much love. And I know that sounds cheesy, but what I'm feeding to the community is what I would feed to my family. What I do feed to my family. My dad just put a bagel order in and he just Venmo'd me, you know, because they want a lot of bagels. And so it's a beautiful thing seeing people, my bread maybe is on the darker side because that's just how I like it, or it's not white, people say, and then they try it and they're like, oh my gosh, this is something I've never had before. And they come back and they try other things, and we like learn together and we ask questions, and what is spelt and what is this? And so it's just always a learning opportunity. But I love the inconsistency sometimes, and it's what keeps me going back to ask why this happened and why the bread feels so good today, or why doesn't it feel as good yesterday? And so it's like these unanswered questions that you just kind of get obsessed with, and you just want to keep, and you can do so much with it. Like, it's so, I don't know. It's just amazing. Like, you can boil some of the flour and throw it in, and it creates a super creamy, it's just, it's great.
How important is sourcing?
I think it's the most important. I mean, like Baker No Bakery, Chris, she is one stand for me, and she is the queen of sourcing, not just flour, you know, from your eggs to your produce. I mean, and we have it. I mean, it's in our backyards. It can be in your backyard if you want it to be. I think everybody, I can't speak for most other bakers, but from working, I mean, I know Marie Bette and Petite Marie Bette do a great job at sourcing when they can. Things are expensive though, and you know, and you have to make a living. And so it's, when you can, they do. And when you have to maybe pick the not local thing that should be the cost that it is because of all the hard work that goes into it, that's also understanding, you know. But for me, you know, I source when I can, but flour, that's a no deal. It will always be local. And I always want to try, like right now, I think I have 4 different farms and millers, 4 different mills in my bakery. But next month I want to, you know, okay, I'm going to take a pause from this mill and let me go and give that, you know, just, I'll find a way to use it. I love the Deep Roots guys. I mean, I was at Asheville Bread Festival a couple weeks ago, and Deep Roots was there. They were more, they were more there for their wood-fired oven building business, but they had some flour there. But they're the kindest people in the world. I mean, Craig, he works at Deep Roots. He helps out milling, and he lives down the road, and he doesn't have to, but he delivers my flour here for me. Like, he doesn't have to do that, but he does. He leaves it on the step, and like, it's amazing. They're in it for the right reasons, you know, like, just like with baking, they're a certain kind of happy stupid. Like, it's just hard. And so, and then at Wade's Mill, like, I've gotten to know their dog, Clover. It's just, it is more than just a transactional relationship. You get to know these people, and because you're on some level doing the same thing, and it feels really good to, like, when I see my deep roots bag, I know the guys who helped get this flower to me. I mean, I feel like that's a very special, rare thing. It starts from this little baby grain. From the grain. It starts from the grain, from the farms. And I mean, thank you to the farmers. That's why we're here, right? I mean, so when a customer comes consistently and they start asking, they want to know what exactly is in my seeded loaf, say, you know, and then I feel this window of opportunity, like, oh, there's buckwheat and there's sorghum and there's seeds and there's rye meal. And then they ask the next question. It's not just, okay, anyways, and I get that too. But, and I say, oh, there's a scald. Oh, what's a scald? It's them being more invested in trying to understand what they're actually eating versus just my country loaf or the soft Sammy loaf, wording things so it's a little bit more like I was doing my buckwheat porridge scald seeded loaf, and everyone's just like, don't do that. I'm like, that makes sense. I won't, so it's just the investment of what they're eating as they eat it, which I find very cool.
What?
I feel like I'm really bad at this.
I'm going to have to tell you something you're definitely not.
Okay.